like किसी ने पूरे स्नो पे आग लगा दी हो. Like it was crazy scene, like out of a postcard. So finally, April 27th, a helicopter lands at the base camp, and a big dabba parcel is there for me. And I remove the first ever animal-free suit on the planet. अब प्रोटीन और कैल्शियम तो वीगन वर्ल्ड में भर भर के, क्योंकि ओरिजिनल सोर्स ऑफ प्रोटीन एंड कैल्शियम तो वीगन फूड है. बाद में जब भी एनिमल्स उसको खाते हैं, फिर हम एनिमल्स को खाते हैं, तो एनिमल्स तो इनडायरेक्ट सोर्स हो गए इन सब चीजों के. डायरेक्ट सोर्स तो अभी भी प्लांट्स ही रहने वाले.
What about clothing? वो
हाँ.
तो क्योंकि वो तो वूल से बनता
So
है.
that is where my challenges started coming.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Seeds of Soul. Today we have an inspiring guest with us. His name is Kuntal, and he is a vegan mountaineer who has scaled Mount Everest twice. He is here to share with us his incredible journey of embracing veganism in extreme weather conditions and know more about vegan lifestyle. So please join me in welcoming Kuntal to Seeds of Soul. Hey guys, if you like such content which is authentic and candid, then do not forget to like, share and subscribe to Seeds of Soul. Thank you, Kuntal, for joining us on Seeds of Soul. It's an incredible honor for us to have you here. I would just like to start off this discussion by understanding your passion for veganism and mountaineering. Those are very two extreme ends of a spectrum.
Right.
And how did that come about? Can you just take us from the top?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me on the show. So I'll start by sharing a little bit more about my vegan journey.
Correct.
I was born and brought up in a vegetarian family.
Correct.
So consequently, of course, I never ate meat. But regular stuff like milk and dairy products or using leather, those things I never questioned. Once I was at a birthday party at school, and a kid brought a birthday cake which had eggs in them, and I knew that there were eggs in them. So my parents had told me that don't eat eggs. So of course I was not going to eat eggs, but I came home and I asked my mom and dad that, hey, why don't we eat any animal products and what's the problem? So my mom gave this very basic example that, hey, look at this cow. The cow has a calf and they have a family. They are like us. They are social animals. And do we eat other humans? So I was like, of course not. Then why are we eating a cow? Or why would we like eat some other animal? That was the analogy that was given to me. And I was like, this seems pretty reasonable. I am fine. I would love to be a vegetarian. And this is the time period I was starting to question many things.
And you are how old in this?
I would say around 12 or 13 years, because I think it was 7th or 8th grade in school when this happened. So already those questioning things were starting to happen. But also I feel it was driven by, I really wanted to eat that cake, to be very honest, right? So the cake looked very enticing and I wasn't able.
So how old were you when this discussion in your head started?
Right, so I was, I think, 12, 13 years old, because I remember this was in 7th or 8th grade.
Correct.
But to be honest, sure, I was questioning some of these things. But I think a lot of that was driven by because I really wanted to eat that cake.
Yeah.
That cake looked very enticing. And I'm like, why am I missing out on this stuff? I really need to go and ask my parents that why couldn't I eat that cake? And I think that was a response that they gave me. And I really connected with the response in the sense that, hey, we don't eat other humans. Why would we, harm other animals? Makes sense, total sense. Okay, let's ride with this.
Correct.
And then life moved on. I finished my school, I finished my engineering, and then I went to US to do my master's. I was living in Los Angeles, and this is the first time I had become independent and I started earning myself, and I was making my own choices, I was making my own decisions. And I had two roommates. Both the roommates were Jains, and so they were also vegetarians, but from a much, much stronger angle than I was.
Correct.
Because from a philosophy of Jain,
Ahimsa.
Correct. Ahimsa or
Kar-
Karuna or Jeev Daya, some of these are very basic concepts that are taught to them right from childhood. Something that I wasn't taught. Anyways, let's get to the point. What started happening is that three of us would go do groceries together. So I would go and I would look at that nice Snickers bar. I would go and look at that nice ice cream or that amazing leather belt or that amazing leather wallet. And I'm like, now I have all the money. Now my parents can't control me. They can't say anything to me. I'm definitely going to buy these things. The concept of meat was still very foreign. I was very clear I'm not going to eat meat because I'm not going to eat an animal or I'm not going to contribute to killing of an animal. That was very clear in my mind. So that was not happening. But this thing, oh, Snickers bar, I have always wanted to eat Snickers. And then my roommate would always kind of, read like the ingredients. Look, here's egg whites. And I would be like, okay, that's okay. I can't see the egg, so it's fine. I'm going to eat it.
Yeah.
I am not, really going to bother about this. And then he would tell me, but you are also wearing a leather belt. I'm like, that leather belt is so nicely packaged and kept on the shelf of a grocery store or like, a clothing store. I'm like, there's no cruelty in that. So basically, I was starting to making all those choices. And my roommate then started kind of nagging or pestering me a lot about that. And then one day I asked him, what's your problem? You're saying all these things to me. Can you let me know what is the exact problem here? So then he sent me just one link of pita, which was he wanted me to stop eating eggs. I was not eating an omelette or I was not eating an egg directly, like a boiled egg or something, but I was eating eggs at least indirectly, either in a pastry, that one that my parents didn't allow me to eat. So all of those things I was starting to consume. So he sent me this link, an undercover video from PETA about egg industry. Now, back then, YouTube had just started. This was 2001 too. So YouTube was not very famous. We were not on YouTube. I think YouTube was just starting. It was just still a startup. So every company hosted their own videos on their site.
Correct.
Like, so for example, I went on the PETA site and I saw that undercover video of egg industry. And then I read the whole process. And I was like, this is insane. I never realized that this could happen. And at the very bottom of the page, they said you should also read about leather. So then I clicked on that link and I saw the leather undercover industry footage. And I saw how leather is made. And I'm like, this is bonkers. This is crazy. I never thought, this leather would be made this way. And then that pointed me to dairy. For first instance, I was दूध में कोई problem नहीं हो सकता. Like I was like very 100% sure that nothing can convince me against दूध. That said, I have to tell you that as a kid growing up, I hated milk in India. Like beyond imagination. My mother would have to force feed me milk.
Like hold a gun to your
Like
head.
literally hold a gun to my head or like bribe me in some way or something.
Correct.
And like ghee, because we made ghee at home, every time ghee was being made at home,
It used to stink.
it just used to stink. So I was like, I hate ghee. I hate doodh. I'm never going to drink it. And then I come to US and I bought this organic milk. It's a company called Horizons. Even today, it's very famous. And I was drinking like half a liter a day. This was full fat milk and tasty as F. Like, can't imagine how tasty it was.
Yeah.
And I was drinking it. I was eating tons of cheese because I was suddenly introduced to this world of cheese in the US. So, all of these things I started eating. And then I'm like, milk also? Not possible. So then I saw the undercover footage of the milk industry. But more than that, I started reading about how milk is produced and what's the life cycle of a cow. And I'm like, this makes no sense. This is ridiculous. And that's when I connected the dots that there is really no difference between a piece of meat, a glass of milk, a block of paneer, that cheese I was so happily eating, or that leather belt I was so flaunting away to glory, or those eggs that I was eating, and that all of these things come from slaughtered, abused, exploited animals at the end of the day. And once I made that connection, then I was at this crossroads in my life. I have two choices. Either I can say ignorance is bliss, convenience is king, apathy is rules, and just move on with my life as it was, or I could have taken a stand for basically the stand where I had to reconcile this dilemma where I thought that I'm a compassionate person towards animals. Let's just talk right now from an animal rights perspective. So that I was a compassionate person from that angle, but my actions really didn't align with my thoughts. So there was this massive dilemma that I had to reconcile. So either I say apathy is bliss, or I take a stand and do something about it. And I feel this is the first time in the 21 years of my existence where the Kuntal who used to be known as this happy-go-lucky guy, who will do everything that his friends say, who will do everything that his parents say, actually take a stand for something that he believed in. And I took a stand for the animals because I really thought that I am a compassionate person and I really would love to not contribute towards animal cruelty and that I want to take a stand here. So I started doing research and I quickly realized that two things are totally under my control. First, whatever goes in my mouth in terms of the food that I'm consuming, that is totally in my control to a reasonable degree. I'm earning on my own money, so I can, purchase my own food. And second, what I'm wearing and the kind of daily use items I'm using. Right, everything from leather to wool to my toothpaste to my shampoo to the soap I'm using, whole host of those things. Everything in my control. These two things. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to control what I can. I don't care about the world. I don't care about what everyone else is doing. This is what I am going to control. And then I started searching on Google, hey, I'm doing this. And I realized that there is a massive movement of people who call themselves vegans. And that is basically what I'm trying to do. And so once that connection happened, one evening I decided I'm a vegan, and next morning I was a vegan. So what I essentially did is everything in my home, I looked at it, and I said these are all non-vegan items, clothing, food, all of those things I kind of figured out, and then I donated many of them to the nearby community center. I was living in Santa Monica, so we had a very good community center out there. And then a lot of it to my roommates, whoever wanted whatever, and then rest of it I just threw it away. And so there I was, vegan, overnight. And to be very honest, uh, the only regret I have in the last 22 years is that why didn't I go vegan sooner? Why didn't I make this connection sooner?
Wow.
Why didn't my parents expose me to this sooner? But I will give you the answer. They even didn't know it. No one, especially in India, people are just blissfully ignorant, apathetic, and unaware of the sheer amount of cruelty that happens in some of these industries that they regularly consume even as vegetarians. So anyway, I don't want to go into any of, details of these things. But that's when I turned vegan, and to be very honest, it's been 22 years, and I have never looked back since. Um, but then life took on. It continued forward. I started working there in the US, and things kind of started looking upwards. But then in 2007, I decided 2006, I wanted to move back to Mumbai. My father was unfortunately diagnosed with a disease called Lewy body dementia, LBD.
Okay.
This was in 2001.
Oh.
But my family hid it from me because I had just gone to the US. They didn't want, me to kind of
Take on that stress.
take on that stress or, give up.
Abandon everything and come back
and
home.
come back. So they kind of, just hid it from me. But every passing year, I would look at my dad and I'm like, this is like, something's amiss here. He's just no longer my dad. Like something's really changing very, very rapidly and dramatically.
And
But then my mother would say, no, he's just a little forgetful and he's under stress, and they would make up some excuse or the other. But by 2005, they had to tell it to me because I went to India and I'm like, this makes no sense. Hey, you guys are saying, this is happening, but this absolutely makes no sense. So then my sister, who's a doctor, told me that this is, what has happened. And she sat me down, we went and met my dad's neurologist, and she explained to me what is going on. And so once I kind of, realized that, I'm coming back. I'm not going to hasten this process or anything, but I'll eventually come back. And, once I set up things nicely, I'll come back and I'll work from Mumbai. And today the world, back then already 2005-06, world was hyper connected already. Okay,
Correct,
so you could
correct.
literally just work from anywhere. It's not, people think that after COVID, this, world has got hyper connected. No, people have been working from home forever. Okay.
Correct.
This is not news or anything. So I was like, I can easily go from India and work from India and I'll make it happen. So I took my time, 2006 October, I finally came back. And again, started taking care of my dad. I was his primary caregiver. So life moved on. Eventually, I got married. I'm a Kutchi Gujarati, so it was a typical arranged marriage match that I went through. And life was good. I was working as the director of India operations here in Mumbai. We were creating a massive, like a 200-person company. It's not massive, I mean, from the
Yeah, oh,
context of
to
what massive is,
it's
but for me, it was really big. We had just rented out a 15,000 square feet office, and life was good. I was making a lot of money, and things were great. And then suddenly one day, my wife told me, hey, we should go on a vacation. So both of us were like, looking for places to go. And she's like, Kuntal, I've never seen snow in my life. And I was like, that is true. Even I haven't seen snow in 20 years. I mean, I was living in Los Angeles. So let's go see snow. So both of us signed up for this trip to Shimla. And we decided February 2009, we'll spend our vacation in Shimla. So we fly to Chandigarh, and then from there we drive to Shimla.
and
And
that's where your love affair with Himalayas started.
correct. That's where I would not say Himalaya, because that is not what happened. We were there to see snow, and for the first 6 days it would get overcast. It would feel as if it's going to snow, but nothing would happen.
Oh,
Snow is a sheer, it's luck, right? You see it, you don't see it. Next time, right? It's all not an issue. We didn't see anything for the next 6 days, but on seventh day, this driver said, "You want to see and touch snow, right? I will help you do that." And so what he said is, we'll drive to this place called Narkanda. It's about 75 kilometers on the Hindustan-Tibet highway, and so let's drive there. And so we drove there, and we stopped at Narkanda as soon as we entered. There was this, small chai ka dhaba type thing, and we were standing there and surrounded by like 360-degree panorama of Himalaya and all the snowy mountains and everything. And then my driver said, "चलो चलो अब जाते हैं, देख लिया ना snow." I'm like, ये मैं YouTube पे भी देख सकता हूँ. Now I'm in 2009, right? YouTube is like all coming in and everything. So he's like, okay, okay. He said, let's go to this place called Hatu Peak. It's just about 8 kilometer drive from Narkanda. And on the top, there is a temple called Hatu Mata Temple. And near there, there's usually always snow in the winter time. So he said, थोड़ा बहुत snow मिल जाएगा, आप खेल लेना उसमें. फिर हम चले जाए, निकल लेंगे इधर से. So then we started driving, and he had a Zen, Maruti Zen. So small car. So we started driving on the ghat, and about a kilometer into the drive, we ran into about almost a feet and a half of snow. And his car couldn't go forward at all. पूरा मतलब अटक गया. And he's like, "So all we can do from here is now we can turn around and go out. I will have to take a reverse, and that one bend where there is extra space, we'll take a reverse and we'll go. तभी तक आप खेल लो यहाँ जितना खेलना है. अभी हो गया ना अभी.
देख लिया ना
देख
आपने snow?
ऊपर देखो या इधर देखो, स्नो सेम ही रहने वाला है.
हाँ.
So then both Dipti and I went into the snow, and we started throwing snowballs at each other and playing snow angels and all those things that I had always dreamt of while doing in snow. And we were literally like kids in a candy store, to be very honest.
Correct.
But then 10 minute खेला, and then अब पक गए, अब ठीक है.
हाँ.
But I don't know what triggered at that point, and I told Dipti, let's just continue walking forward. So we told our driver, आप 15 मिनट रुको, हम आते हैं थोड़ा आगे देख के क्या है आगे. So we started walking. I was in a t-shirt, like almost like this, but brown in color, and like a jeans and like chappal. Back then I was overweight, about 100 kilos plus.
Wow.
And just a typical tourist, right, who really does not understand about mountains or how to trek or what to do, like doesn't care. So we started walking, 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. 4 hours later, we are on the top of the mountain, finished this 8 kilometer long trek. We struggled a lot. Beyond imagination, we struggled. We were like, there was a point where Dipti's like, you are wheezing. Do you still want to continue? So I was like, literally like as an asthma attack was, happening, but I am not asthmatic. So it was not like an asthma attack, but I was just out of breath.
Yes.
Like crazy.
Yeah.
But we decided to continue. I remember at the 3 hour boundary, this massive Tibetan Bhotia dog out of somewhere appears, and we were almost nearly lost. And this dog comes, and for the next 1 hour guides us to the top. And by the way, these dog stories happen to people all the time.
Yes.
I thought this was unique to us. Like, oh, we found this amazing dog who took us to the top. And then we saw that people have been writing about this all the time, and it has been happening forever, since ages. So it was such a fun experience where, we had, like, we get to the top, and I, very much can, vividly remember that scene where Dipti and I am, both of us are sitting, and the dog is right next to us, almost like our size, and all three of us just looking into infinity. And it was like, at that time is when, my life took a U-turn. Like, I was 29 years old, and yeah, and as I said, life was good. Nothing, I would not say quarter life or a midlife crisis, or something like that was happening. Anyways, I'm not a person who, has crisis in life that has to deal with, stuff like that. Doesn't happen to me. So I was like, but when I was sitting on the top, for the first time, I would not say I was very spiritually inclined or anything, or like, thinking about some of those things. But for the first time, I could kind of experience an emotion where you are just able to live in the moment. And you have always heard this, cliched statement that, live in the moment, live in the present. But for me, it was almost like an epiphany where first time I'm not pondering about, like, mistakes from past, or I'm not planning for the future. All of those things melted away, and the present moment was in extreme focus, and there was this deep joy like I had never felt in my life. And I'm thinking, wow, I didn't realize that a human can feel like this. And then I thought it would be so awesome if I can feel like this for the rest of my life. That is what I fell in love with. I didn't fell in love with mountains. That is not the first thing that happened. I fell in love with the state of mind that I was able to achieve there. Maybe, I had always heard about this state of mind, people using drugs to achieve it, or, people using many means to achieve it. But to be able to just achieve without any external aid, I was like, I mean, there was external aid, there was mountains, but I mean, it was crazy. So then, we realized we were like 4.5 hours away gone. That guy would be totally lost. There was, cell phone service was not there. I had like that small Nokia phone which was not even working. He must have totally panicked. God knows what he would have done there. Luckily, he had not panicked. He was just sitting there. He knew that maybe we were gone. We finally made our way down in about 2.5 hours, because going down is a lot, gentler and faster. So we were back down, and we, finally vacation finished. We came back to Mumbai, and I thought, "Hey, look, I'm so passionate about technology. I wrote my first piece of code in 1993. I'm so passionate about building things, and I'm building this company that we are working on. I should feel the same, kind of feeling that I felt on the top of that mountain." So went back to work, and few weeks passed by, but I never felt that passion or that.
It was just a life defining moment for
It was a
you.
life defining moment, honestly speaking. But
There's
like
nothing,
that
nothing.
spark, I was just not feeling that spark for my work.
Correct.
I'm not saying my work was not challenging or any of all of those things were there. Just that you wake up in the morning and you totally from every cell of your body look forward to it was not happening.
Anymore, yeah.
And maybe this is me, and I am almost always on extreme side of things. I don't like middle ground is very difficult for me to achieve. So I'm usually on some extreme, either on the apathy extreme or either on the passion extreme. I'm on some extreme almost always.
Yeah, because you just said na, that you could actually work on a switch. Then next one day, one evening, you decided that I want to be a vegan, and
Right.
next day you are a vegan.
Right. So I can do that. I can, sometimes flip that switch for sure.
And you can be in that mind space that no matter what the temptation is, no matter what occasion is, or whatever it is, because obviously you come from an Indian house, right? So if I can imagine a situation where your mom has made your favorite kheer, maybe.
Right.
And who doesn't love kheer, right? Yeah, and you just still deciding that, okay, no, I'm not going to give in to that temptation, and I'm not going to go back to that lifestyle. I've made a decision for myself. That is an extreme
Right.
choice spectrum.
It is, and so it's so funny you bring this up, because a couple of days ago, Midday did an article about this very topic, where they featured 4 or 5 people who have left their favorite food items for many years. So I was featured in that, As a Kachi, we drink a lot of chas, which is of course buttermilk, and I have not tasted buttermilk in 22 years.
Wow.
So for someone like me who used to literally drink half liter of buttermilk every day, to flip the switch and just say I'm not going to drink it because that doesn't align with my ethics and my values. Yes, you can call it extreme.
Yes, but this is very interesting, from you saying that you took up mountaineering. आपने जब क्लाइंब करना शुरू किया, आपने माउंटेन्स करना शुरू किया, तो उसके लिए आपने एक एक्सट्रीम चैलेंज भी लिया कि यू हैव टू क्लाइंब द माउंट एवरेस्ट.
Right.
करेक्ट. बट उसके लिए तो माउंटेन्स क्लाइंब करने के लिए ठीक है, आप मीट या आप वेज, आप एनिमल प्रोडक्ट्स नहीं कंज्यूम करेंगे, बट उसके लिए आप बिना लेदर के या वीगन क्लोथिंग के साथ, ये तो बहुत ही ज़्यादा एक्सट्रीम हो गया होगा.
Back when I decided to climb Everest in 2010, वो 2009 में when I went to Shimla and fell in love with a certain state of mind. फिर वापस नीचे आया, वर्क पे गया, and I really didn't kind of connect with what I was doing.
करेक्ट.
Eventually, I realized over the course of next 1.5 years that I'm truly madly and deeply in love with mountains, because it is in the mountains where I'm able to achieve that state of mind. And it is sheer the act of being in the mountains and climbing the mountains. वो एक step के आगे दूसरा step और आगे दूसरा step, allowing me to live in the present. I think I kind of had discovered that. And मैंने decide कर लिया था कि मैं पहाड़ चढ़ने वाला हूँ. Consequently, October of 2010, I went to Everest Base Camp. And one evening I saw Everest, a sunset happening on Everest. And I fell in love with Everest, to be very honest. Like if I had to describe that sunset, think of Everest as this range which is engulfed on all sides by many other massive mountains. But Everest तो top of the world है, ठीक है? So अगर आसपास के पहाड़ अगर बड़े भी लग रहे हैं, still Everest is the top of the world. Right? वो सिर्फ पर्सपेक्टिव की बात है और या आपके वेंटेज पॉइंट की बात है. आप कहीं खड़े और लग रहा है यार वो माउंटेन एवरेस्ट से थोड़ा बड़ा लग रहा है यार, बट वो एवरेस्ट से बड़ा नहीं है क्योंकि एवरेस्ट सबसे बड़ा पहाड़ है दुनिया का, राइट? एंड दैट ट्रूली कम्स आउट व्हेन अ सनसेट इज हैपनिंग.
करेक्ट.
So the last rays of sunset were directly falling on Everest. Every other mountain was in the color of grey and blue, except Everest, which was burning golden in color in between. Like किसी ने पूरे snow पे आग लगा दी हो. Like it was crazy scene, like out of a postcard. And I was standing there and looking at Everest. Our whole team was, जो हम सब गए थे. And to be very honest, वो बॉलीवुड का डायलॉग है, पहली नजर में प्यार हो गया. And in that moment I fell in love with Everest, and I promised myself that Everest willing, I will come one day and I will stand on that topmost point of the planet. And that is where the journey started, कि मुझे एवरेस्ट चढ़ना है. But then I started engaging with a company that, there are these adventure companies that help people climb Everest. So I started writing, exchanging notes with them back and forth. And किसी ने I decided कि मुझे Peak Freaks करके कंपनी है, कैनेडियन कंपनी है, उनके साथ क्लाइम करना है, because I really respected their team leader Tim Rippel, and काफी like I really respected them. So he put me in touch with one of their dietitians or nutritionists, I don't remember. And so we started discussing about diet, कि मैं vegan हूँ और मुझे prepare करना है एवरेस्ट के लिए, और मतलब कैसे करना पड़ेगा. So उन्होंने मुझे बोला, कुंतल, you will have to eat meat, you will have to eat dairy, and you will have to eat eggs, not only to build your fitness and endurance while you are training for the next 3, 5, 7 years, whatever it takes for you to climb Everest, but even जब ये आप पहाड़ पे हो, you will have to eat cheese, you will have to eat beef jerky, or you will have to eat some of these very high calorie dense items, ताकि आप अपने आप को गर्म रख सको और आपके पास sufficient calories हो चलने के लिए.
Exactly, क्योंकि यही एक तरह का अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, राइट?
लोगों का पर्सपेक्टिव था.
हाँ.
बट मैं इंजीनियर हूँ एट द एंड ऑफ द डे, और अगर मैं किसी की कोई बात सुनता हूँ ना, तो इंजीनियर, मेरा माइंड कैसा है ना कि पहले मुझे रिवर्स इंजीनियर करना है इस चीज को.
करेक्ट.
राइट? हम कैसे इंजीनियर, कैसे ना कोई देखता है तो यार ये कैसे चलता है, लेट्स फिगर आउट ये कैसे चलता है, तो उसको हम रिवर्स इंजीनियर करते हैं.
करेक्ट.
तो मैंने बोला यार ये मुझे बोल रही है कि मीट खाओ, पर मीट में है क्या जो मुझे मीट खाना चाहिए. तो आई फिगर आउट कि मीट में प्रोटीन है. तो मैंने बोला चलो प्रोटीन है और मे भी थोड़ा आयरन या मे भी थोड़ा माइक्रो न्यूट्रिएंट्स है, चलो एक ये बात ठीक है, ओके चलो. कि मुझे प्रोटीन खाना है.
Yeah.
फिर मैंने बोला एग्स खाने की बोल रही है, एग्स में क्या है? एग्स में भी प्रोटीन है, हेल्दी फैट्स है और माइक्रो न्यूट्रिशन है. मैंने बोला ठीक है. अब उसने बोल रही है कि मुझे दूध भी पीना पड़ेगा या दूध की आइटम्स खानी पड़ेगी. दूध में क्या है? प्रोटीन
Calcium.
और कैल्शियम. तो मैंने बोला ये तीन चीज मुझे खानी है. मुझे मीट नहीं खाना है, मुझे अंडा नहीं खाना है, मुझे दूध नहीं पीना है, मुझे खाना है प्रोटीन और कैल्शियम. अब प्रोटीन और कैल्शियम तो वीगन वर्ल्ड में भर भर के, क्योंकि ओरिजिनल सोर्स ऑफ प्रोटीन एंड कैल्शियम तो वीगन फूड है. बाद में जब भी एनिमल्स उसको खाते हैं, फिर हम एनिमल्स को खाते हैं, तो एनिमल्स तो इनडायरेक्ट सोर्स हो गए इन सब चीजों के. डायरेक्ट सोर्स तो अभी भी प्लांट्स ही रहने वाले. तो मैंने बोला चलो ठीक है. और थोड़ा नुआंस है ये डिस्कशन, तो मैं डिटेल में नहीं जाना चाहता. बट अगर स्मार्टली इसके सोर्सेज वीगन वर्ल्ड में ढूंढ लिए, और प्लस सप्लीमेंट्स तो है ही, वीगन सप्लीमेंट्स तो है ही. सो अगर स्मार्टली ये सब कर लिया तो मुझे प्रोटीन भी मिल जाएगा और मुझे कैल्शियम भी मिल जाएगा. सो इन माई माइंड आई वॉज थिंकिंग, if I am going to climb Everest, I am going to climb as a vegan or not do it at all. Very clear. ये एक बार रिवर्स इंजीनियरिंग हो गया, बाद में माइंड में बहुत
तो
clear
व्हाट
था.
अबाउट क्लोथिंग? वो
हाँ.
तो क्योंकि वो तो वूल से
So
बनता है.
that is where my challenges started coming. So when I started researching about my gear, अब मैंने खाने का सिचुएशन
तो sort हो गया.
सॉर्ट हो गया. वो honestly I can tell you, after 15 years of climbing mountains, if I have to list down 100 challenges that I've faced on Everest or any other mountains, vegan food would not even be 101st challenge. ठीक है? Vegan food is just all about people's expectations and managing them. अरे vegan होगा, weak होगा, कैसा होगा, कैसे चढ़ेगा ये. It's managing those things.
Correct.
Actually, vegan food is not a problem. ठीक है? तो वो हम उसमें डिस्कशन भी नहीं करते कि vegan food problem है या नहीं है. But now I'll come to the gear bit. गेयर एक्चुअली प्रॉब्लम था, एंड वो मैं एक्नॉलेज करता हूँ प्रॉब्लम था, और मैं एक्नॉलेज करूंगा आज भी है. ठीक है. सो आज 15 साल हो गए और आज भी गेयर प्रॉब्लम है, अनफॉर्चुनेटली. सो ये दो एंगल से है. वन इज यूजिंग डाउन फेदर इंसुलेशन वाले जैकेट्स.
हाँ.
ये नंबर वन. और नंबर टू इज लेदर. Usage of leather in our gloves, usage of leather in some of our shoes, and usage of leather in some of these products. तो ये दो चीज अभी भी बहुत बड़े प्रॉब्लम है. बट बैक इन 2010 व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड फिगरिंग आउट कि मुझे क्या गेयर बाय करना चाहिए, तो मुझे रियलाइज हुआ, फॉर एग्जांपल जो बड़ा जैकेट मुझे चाहिए, एकदम ही हैवी वाला जैकेट विच काइंड ऑफ कीप्स मी वार्म इन सम ऑफ दीज -10, -15, -25, समटाइम्स इवन -30 डिग्री सेल्सियस टेम्परेचर्स, दे आर ऑल मेड फ्रॉम डाउन फेदर्स. मेरे पास ऑप्शन ही नहीं है. वुल वॉज नॉट अ बिग प्रॉब्लम. Replacing wool throughout my entire gear list was very easy to do, because there were already companies that were making synthetic wool since a long period of time.
Correct.
तो wool का issue आया ही नहीं जरा भी. इस पहले डाउन का इशू आ गया, और फिर देखा तो बहुत सारे जो जूते मुझे बाय करने थे, वो सब जूतों में भी लेदर बहुत यूज हो रहा था. तो आई हैड टू क्रैक दीज टू थिंग्स. एज years passed by, I realized that shoes are no longer a problem, because many of the shoes were being turned into synthetic anyway. अभी लेदर का क्या होता है ना, कि लेदर है ना हायर एल्टीट्यूड में बहुत कोल्ड में ना फ्रीज होना शुरू हो जाता है और बहुत कड़क हो जाता है. सो बहुत ही इम्प्रैक्टिकल हो जाता है लेदर. अब वो लोग काफी वे में ट्रीट करते हैं लेदर को ताकि वो फिर भी वर्केबल हो, बट ज्यादा इजियर सोल्यूशन वाज टू ब्रिंग सिंथेटिक इनटू द बूट लाइन आल्सो. सो वाइड मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द कंपनीज टुडे आर यूजिंग सिंथेटिक्स इन देयर बूट लाइन. सो वो ऑटोमेटिकली मेरा प्रॉब्लम मेरे ही एफर्ट के बिना रिजॉल्व हो गया, जस्ट बाय शीयर वेटिंग फॉर टाइम. द लास्ट प्रॉब्लम स्टिल वाज पेंडिंग कि मेरा सूट. अभी जब भी हम एवरेस्ट के टॉप पे पहुंचते हैं तो टेम्परेचर्स कुड बी -40, -45. देयर कुड बी बैड विंड्स ऑफ 50 किलोमीटर्स पर आवर, 70 किलोमीटर्स पर आवर, कभी कभी 100 किलोमीटर्स पर आवर. अभी ऐसे टेम्परेचर और ऐसे विंड्स में यू हैव अ वेरी स्पेशलाइज्ड सूट दैट यू वेयर. This is a one-piece suit, so it literally goes from here to the bottom of my legs.
Okay, to your toes.
To my toes. It's like a one-piece suit, and it protects me in these kind of temperatures. So 2012 में I first wrote a mail to some of the biggest gear companies in the world. This is North Face, Mountain Hardware, PhD Designs, RAV, many other companies. जो भी सूट बना रही थी, मैंने सबको मैसेज लिखा कि भाई I am a vegan. Can you please make an animal free material suit for me? So initially तो लोगों का रिप्लाई नहीं आया, like just मैं तो
ignore.
So PETA reached out to me saying, "Hey, we have realized that you are trying to become the first vegan in the world to climb Everest.
Yeah.
How can we help you?" I am like, मुझे आपका कुछ भी नहीं चाहिए. If you can go next door, the headquarters of PETA in New York is literally next door to North Face. तो मैंने बोला, if you can book an appointment, go next door and do a meeting with them and convince them to make a animal free suit for me, I will be forever grateful to you.
Yeah.
ठीक है, आप इतना कर दो मेरे लिए. So they actually set up a meeting. They actually went and did a presentation on my behalf to North Face. North Face said to them, this is financially not viable. This literally one human in the world is asking for this product. इतना R&D कौन करेगा? मटेरियल भी अवेलेबल नहीं है, टेक्नोलॉजी भी अवेलेबल नहीं है, करने कौन वाला है ये सब? राइट, और डिमांड ही नहीं है. हमने लेट से पैसा भी स्पेंड कर दिया, हमने सब कुछ कर दिया, कस्टम सूट भी बना दिया, टेस्ट कौन करेगा? चलो ये राइट, बिकॉज आई हैड नो क्रेडिबिलिटी, ये टेस्ट कौन करेगा? ये सब करने कौन वाला है ये सब? सो दे बेसिकली रिफ्यूज्ड पीटर, दे सेड दिस इज ऑल ग्रेट, आपका प्रेजेंटेशन बहुत अच्छा था, पर वी कांट डू इट, वी कांट हेल्प. सो 2013 में मैंने लिखा, 2014 में भी मैंने लिखा. No responses. People were just saying not possible. The technology is not there. Financially not viable. तो काफी सारा ऐसा हुआ. In 2014, I got a chance to climb the 8th tallest mountain in the world called Manaslu.
And where is this mountain?
This is in Nepal.
Okay.
All the tallest mountains of the world are either in Nepal, Tibet, India, or Pakistan. These are the literally the areas hosting all the tallest mountains of the world. So I got a chance to climb the 8th tallest mountain. And this was at 26,000+ feet, I think around 26,500 or 27,000 feet. I would have needed that suit. Now I didn't have that suit. So I bought a suit with down feathers in them. And my point was कि यार मुझे prove करना है कि vegans कर सकते हैं. So ये अभी एक last चीज बाकी है, पर मैं कर लेता हूँ. So I submitted Manaslu. 2 years later, I even submitted Everest for the first time. 2016 में मैंने Everest भी submit कर लिया इसी सूट में, ये वाला. It was made from responsible down feathers. Let me categorically state here that there are no responsible down feathers. Humane feathers is a myth. Humane milk is a myth. Humane meat is a myth. ये सब कुछ एक बहुत ही बड़ा myth है.
It's just a marketing gimmick.
It's just a marketing gimmick. Think of taking a geese and ripping off all its feather just in a way that it's kept alive. And what will happen? The geese will grow the feathers again so that you can rip them out again. The amount of stuff, imagine if someone comes and starts removing our skin when we are alive. इमेजिन मुझे वो ग्राफ्टिंग करते हैं राइट, कभी कभी जब लोगों की सर्जरीज और वो सब होती है. इमेजिन मैंने आपको एनेस्थेसिया नहीं दी और वो ग्राफ्टिंग आपका ऐसे मैंने आपको लाइव कर लिया ग्राफ्टिंग. जस्ट इमेजिन द सफरिंग एंड पेन दैट वी वुड गो थ्रू. आई पुट माई सेल्फ इन प्लेस ऑफ दोज गीसेस कि क्या मुझे ये सफरिंग चलेगी? माई आंसर वॉज नो. सो 2016 में चढ़ तो गया मैं एवरेस्ट, और बहुत मेरा आइकॉनिक फोटो है समिट पे, that went viral and everything, and world में सारे publications, first vegan in the world to climb Everest, और उसके बाद बहुत सारे hundreds of talk invitations where I was on the stage talking about my journey, and they would invite us, welcome to Kuntal Joisher, the first vegan in the world to climb Everest. And then I would go on the top and I would share my photo and I would be like, यार मैं तो vegan ही नहीं हूँ, क्योंकि मेरे बॉडी पे ही डेड एनिमल है, एक नहीं, दो नहीं, परहैप्स 15 या 20. हाउ कैन आई क्लेम टू बी द फर्स्ट वीगन इन द वर्ल्ड टू क्लाइम एवरेस्ट? ये तो बात मेरे पल्ले ही नहीं पड़ रही है बात.
It was sitting on your conscience.
It was sitting on my conscience big time, to a point where I lost a lot of peace in my life. I honestly for the first time in my life lost sleep because I was not able to cope up with
all of that.
Every day जा रहा हूँ मैं टॉक दे रहे, every day same सुन के आ रहा हूँ, and every day I'm coming home and thinking मैं तो झूठा आदमी.
And they are conveniently not talking about the clothing that
they don't even know, right? I'm not going to blame the talk organizers, right? I am telling them I am the first vegan in the world to climb Everest. Right? They are not like they don't care, ये geese ये वो, they don't care. They are like, अरे ये vegan है, इसने एवरेस्ट चढ़ाया है, चलो बुला लो इसको.
Correct.
Right? That's what's happening. So I was the one who had to accept and acknowledge this. which I was in full denial because I was so happy about the fame and the name and everything that I had gotten out of this, whole journey, forgetting why I started in first place.
Correct.
Right? So all of this was going on, and this is where I had to put a full stop. I had to acknowledge. I had to stop guilt tripping myself. I had to stop, becoming a victim here. I am not the victim. Right? So ये सारे चक्कर से मुझे रट से बाहर निकलना था. And I did that eventually, few months after I came back. And then I promised myself, मैं अभी भी लगे रहने वाला हूँ. Mistake हो गया है. Believe me, it would be an understatement if I say that 2016 Everest Summit was the biggest failure of my life. It is, and it will always be.
Wow.
Vegans will say कि तूने बहुत debunk किए myths और सब कुछ, but in my life, what it did, I realized that was a mistake. I should not have done that. I should never have done that Manaslu climb also. I should have tried harder. I should have persevered harder, and it would have happened.
So how did you come about this? What about the next summit?
So I said, guilt करना ये तो solution नहीं है. मैं तो यहाँ बैठ के रो रहा हूँ, घर पे आके रोज रो रहा हूँ कि यार मैंने क्या कर दिया. ये तो solution नहीं है. कुछ हो रहा है इससे आगे, कुछ निकल रहा है मेरा, नहीं निकल रहा है. Animals का कुछ हो रहा है, नहीं हो रहा है. So better start fixing the issue that I have created.
Did you fix the issue?
So what I did is I started writing out to companies again. Now 2016 was also tipping point for the vegan movement as general across the world because it went exponentially viral for whatever reasons. I don't know. Right? Vegans started getting under a lot more microscope than they were used to. But it was just exploding all across the world. So things were changing.
Correct.
So with that newfound information, I was starting to write to all the companies again. मैंने बोला क्या मालूम नॉर्थ फेस पे भी बनाना.
और अभी तो आपको recognition, coverage भी मिल चुका था.
सब कुछ हो चुका है.
So maybe they would be willing to invest into you. Yes.
So मैंने बोला चलो करते हैं. So I started writing. No, सब जगह से वापस no आना शुरू हुआ. But मैंने बोला इस time no से मैं ना, I'm not going to let the no deter me from trying to make this work. Because I had then committed that I'm going to build the suit myself. So मैंने जाके बात किया एक टेलर से काठमांडू में. तो टेलर ने बोला कि हम सूट तो खुद पे बना लेंगे और उसमें हम प्लास्टिक का फिलिंग भी डाल देंगे. But it will be so impractical that you will look like a Michelin man on the, वो Michelin man का लोगो पता है आपको?
हाँ.
So you look like a Michelin man on the mountain. मतलब बहुत impractical हो जाएगा. ये कुछ काम में नहीं आएगा. I'm like चलो पर ऑप्शन तो है ना. कुछ नहीं तो मैं impractical बन के मैं Michelin man जाके पहाड़ पे चढ़ूंगा. कुछ तो करूंगा पर अब जाना है और इसको ये इशू को मुझे रिजॉल्व करना है. ड्यूरिंग दिस टाइम आई रोट टू अ कंपनी कॉल्ड सेव द डक एंड सेव द डक इज अ कंपनी विच वाज अ प्रीमियर कंपनी इन सिंथेटिक इंसुलेशन, इन एनिमल फ्री इंसुलेशन. तो आई रोट अ कोल्ड फेसबुक मैसेज टू देम. आई सेड पैसा नहीं चाहिए आपका, सूट भी मत बनाओ मेरे लिए, 5 या 10 किलो आपका इंसुलेशन भेज दो, मेरे पास ऑलरेडी टेलर रेडी है, वो मुझे सूट बना के दे देगा. सो ये कर दो आप मेरे लिए बस. सो 10 minutes later, Giada, the chief marketing officer of Save the Duck back then, she wrote to me saying, "Can we get on a quick call?" So we got on a quick call, and उसने मुझे बोला कि we would like to build the suit for you. I'm like,
wow, finally कहीं से तो.
पर I was not going to trust, क्योंकि मुझे कैसा था ना कि सारी दुनिया ना बोल रही है पर आप हाँ बोल रहे हो, और ऐसी तो कोई अब बड़ी कंपनी हो भी नहीं. सो आई डोंट नो, आई थॉट इट वाज अ स्कैम और समथिंग. आई एम लाइक let's just see how much happens. So within a week I was on a phone call with the chief designer and we were discussing कि design कैसे होगा. That's when I started realizing शायद हो जाए, क्या मालूम. But I was still very very hesitant. फिर next 4-5 महीनों के लिए they were in touch, they were discussing everything, and then for January they just went completely MIA. Like no response to my messages, no response to my emails, nothing. And I had already booked a trip to climb Lhotse, which is the 4th tallest mountain of the world, next to Everest. And I wanted to do it. I wanted to test the suit. मुझे एवरेस्ट पे जाके टेस्ट नहीं करना था सूट. मैंने बोला यार Lhotse पे जाएंगे, खर्चा भी कम होगा, मेरा सूट भी टेस्ट हो जाएगा वहाँ. ये लोग है ही नहीं, गायब. अचानक से फर्स्ट वीक ऑफ अप्रैल में मुझे मैसेज आया, आपका सूट रेडी है, बोलो कहाँ भेजना है. मैंने बोला अभी भी मैं नहीं मान रहा हूँ आप लोगों को. सब कुछ एड्रेस दिया एंड नहीं आया सूट. एंड आई एम लाइक अब मेरा नेपाल जाने का टाइम आ गया है. So then I went to Nepal. I reached Everest base camp, Lhotse base camp, which shares the base camp, and I started climbing the mountain. अभी भी यहाँ सूट नहीं आया. And then suddenly they are like, अब हम सूट is in China. We can send you very quickly. Where are you? I'm like, now I'm at the base camp. You send it to Nepal, I'll figure out a way to get it. So finally, April 27th, a helicopter lands at the base camp, and a big dabba parcel is there for me. And I remove the first ever animal free suit on the planet.
Wow.
Imagine after all these years and 8 months of going back and forth and kya hone wala hai, I finally was holding that suit in my hand. And of course, in the next month or so, I went and I climbed Lhotse. May 15th, 12 noon, I summited Lhotse wearing that suit. And as far as my research goes, I believe the first human who reached 8,000 plus meters without eating or wearing animals. So I remember when I was standing on top of Lhotse at around 8,500, 8,400 meters, and Everest is just next door,
Next door,
neighbor.
yeah.
And I was looking at the summit of Everest and I'm like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to come. It's
That's-
only a question of when it's going to happen. No longer it's a question of how or ये सब कैसे होने वाला है.
So this is certainly very interesting, Kuntal, and I think that about veganism we have also learnt a lot, and I'm glad that you made a statement to the world that being a vegan is no way a handicap in you achieving your dreams,
Right.
and you summited Mount Everest not once but twice. I'm just saying that because this is truly inspiring. I know I've said it a couple of times, but are there any parting notes to our audience?
You just brought up this, very interesting concept of handicap because this happens to me a lot. So maybe, I'll like kind of share some things on this. What tends to happen is that every time I go out and I'm invited on the stage, first vegan in the world to climb Everest,
Correct.
almost as if they're insulting me. Right? Almost as if they're saying that veganism इतना बड़ा handicap है कि तुमने एवरेस्ट चढ़ लिया तो तुमने कुछ जग जीत लिया है या ऐसा
Correct,
कुछ
correct,
हो रहा है. Rather than just saying, hey, he's mountaineer who has climbed Everest and ये सब कर दिया है, they're almost attaching the vegan world as if कि ये कोई handicap है. Please understand that मेरे लिए veganism कभी भी handicap नहीं हुआ है. It has never been a hindrance ever. On the contrary, veganism has been my strength, has been my thing that has propelled me to climb all these mountains. अभी भी मुझे याद है, second time when I was summiting Everest as an entire vegan while wearing that animal free suit, I remember that 28,700 feet I was stuck below a 50 feet rock wall, 90 degree की rock wall थी, ट्रैफिक जैम हो गया था, 45 मिनट से मैं वहाँ वेट कर रहा था, मेरा ऑक्सीजन ऑलमोस्ट खत्म हो रहा था, मैं बहुत ठंडा फील कर रहा था. एक मोमेंट में लगा चलो यार घर जाते हैं, क्या प्रूव करना बाकी रह गया है, किसको कुछ भी प्रूव करना है, ऑलरेडी सबमिट कर चुका हूँ एवरेस्ट, ऐसा कुछ नहीं कि कुछ हो जाने वाला है. लेट्स जस्ट सेव आवरसेल्व्स एंड गो होम. एंड देन आई आस्क्ड माय सेल्फ द क्वेश्चन, व्हाई एम आई क्लाइंबिंग दिस माउंटेन? एंड द आंसर वाज, आई एम क्लाइंबिंग दिस second time is merely for the animals. One and one reason only. And this time I am not going to give up. And I use that to kind of like focus करो, ऊपर जाएंगे, वापस नीचे आएंगे, and we will show it to the world that ये हो सकता है. So honestly, if 2009 में if I look back upon myself, 110 kilos, कच्ची गुजराती software engineer, that happy-go-lucky guy next door, people thought my life में कुछ करने नहीं वाला हूँ.
Correct.
If that guy can transform his life and create a top of the world body and mind and go and climb Everest not just once and twice and do it on a vegan diet, honestly, I think every human on this planet can achieve the biggest dreams of their life without ever having an animal to suffer or die for them.
That is a beautiful message, and I really thank you, Kuntal, for coming to Seeds of Soul and sharing your very inspiring journey.